Hi, I'm Cory Ferguson. I'm a second generation tattooer of 20 years, and I'm also the co-creator of Geometrica Tattoo app. So this tutorial is going to be a basic rundown of everything in the app. A lot of the tools we've created have never existed before, so I'm going to show you what they do and where they're located in the app. Our user interface is really easy to use. This was one of our priorities from the very beginning. So most people can just pick up the app and go, but it doesn't hurt to have something like this that'll help you take advantage of everything we have to offer. Hope you enjoy it and I hope it's helpful. Cheers. Okay, let's get started. So we open up the app. So you're going to open up to a blank page. You can just start drawing right away if you like, but let's go into the gallery and see what's there. It's a good place to start. So if you long press on any of the files you have already, menu pops up where you can delete that file, you can duplicate it, rename it, or move it to iCloud. So this is handy for tattooers who seem to travel a lot. If you're somewhere, your iPad gets lost or stolen, your important stuff you can have saved to your cloud. And then same thing, if you want to get rid of that, long press it, remove from iCloud. So you can organize your files however you prefer. You can have them organized alphabetically by name, going up or going down. The default, which I prefer, is the last time the file was modified. So basically the last thing you were working on, that's going to be the first thing to come up. You can also do it by the date that it was created or the size of the file. So let's just go back to the normal one. Last thing modified is going to come up first. So you start a new document, you click on that. Now you got your options: portrait, landscape, square, custom, which you would adjust the amount of pixels down here. And if you know that it's going to be for a client, you might want to click on store on iCloud right away. And let's do portrait. So as you'll see, the user interface, very simple. You've got your drop downs in the top left where they normally would be. They're all quite self-explanatory. And you've got your gallery button here, the one that looks like a little frame. You've got a print button, which is the icon that looks like a classic 3M stencil machine. You've got your share button here, as you would on every Apple device pretty much. Your delete button. You can clear the whole thing or you can clear the current layer. There's some options there. You got undo, redo. You got your tools, so your drawing tools, marker, eraser, line tool, bucket fill, and whatnot. We'll go into that after. This little ink cap is your color picker. And these are all your fancy Geometrica specialty tools. So we'll get into all those. This is the fun stuff. So we have our new document. The first thing you'll notice probably on the screen is this area on the middle left. So these are some things we put in for efficiency. So this button here will quickly go back and forth between whatever tool you're using and the eraser. So if you're drawing, erase, draw, erase. And I've placed them here because as a right-handed person, for me, this is basically where my hand that I'm not using is going to rest. So if I'm drawing, I don't have to move, my Apple Pencil or my position of my hand. I don't have to move that at all. I can stay where it is and hit it with the hand that I'm not using. So also the undo and redo buttons are here as well. So for me, I found this is much more efficient. I mean, it only saves you a few microseconds, but sometimes that's everything, especially over the course of a few hours of drawing. And once you get used to it being there, it's awesome. Trust me, it's super cool. So your undo, your redo, and your switching back and forth between tool and eraser are there. And if you're a left-handed person, don't worry, we got you. Go into File and then Preferences, and you can change that over to the other side. And so you'd be drawing on this side and using your other hand to do that. So I'm not left-handed, so let's go back the other way. And this, if you have a lot of problems with touching the screen where you're resting your wrist or whatever to draw with. If you turn off the finger drawing, you can get a lot less mistakes, or if you want to have finger drawing, you can have that turned on. And we'll check out some of these other preferences in a minute. In the edit menu, you'll find your undo, your redo, your copy and paste. Layer has to do with the layers that you'll find the icon for in the far right. The icon that looks like 3 pieces of paper on top of each other. So open that up, there's your menu. The plus will add a layer for you. If you long press the thumbnails, you can move them up and down, change the order of the layers. Let's see. So this is the selected the active layer with the pattern showing on it in the background. So the arrow button is transform, and from there pinch and zoom to move, rotate, size up. From there, if you like your transform, you confirm it with the green arrow or scrap it and start from where it was with the red X. The next button to the left will, right in the center of the whole thing, this takes you to your camera roll. Suppose you want to add something from your camera roll in there. You have the same transform option when you import it before you place it. Click yes. Click on the thumbnail to move it. And I'm going to also lower the opacity on this one just to make it a background. Let's go back to this one. From here you also have your, takes you to your camera so you can take a picture while in Geometrica. And the button on the left, far left with these little dots, those are the monthly patterns that I've included. So let's see, I'm going to turn off the view on that layer. Go into our monthly patterns. I put in 6 patterns each month just so give people ideas of stuff that can be done with the app. Either give you an idea of what you can do, or maybe you're just feeling lazy one day and you want to just take a pattern and tattoo that. Well, you're welcome to. These are yours. So let's add one. Clicking on it and then hit done. And there you go. It opens up as a layer. And now that's in there. I'm going to long press on the thumbnail, bring this one back up. Make that the active layer, and then I'll show you some other layer options you have in your drop downs on the upper left. So up here you can duplicate that layer. So now you have 2 of them. Let's see, I'll click on that one that we just made, and then I will take that one and I'll go to the bottom and I will flip it vertically. Now it's down there. So I'm going to hit undo and I'll flip it horizontally. Now you have that. Those 2 are 2 different layers. So if I want to put them together, I will, if this is my active layer, I'm going to go over to layer and I'm going to go to merge layer down. So it's going to merge with the layer that's beneath it. Now these are one layer. If you were to hit transform, for example, they're going to move together. Same thing goes for merging up. And if you don't want it, you can clear the layer. So yeah, the other thing in the layer menu is to invert the colors. So if you've drawn something in black, but what you're going to actually tattoo is the stuff that you've left, like your negative space, invert colors is very handy. Switches black and white, or whatever color you have in there. That's the gist of layers. So let's go into the view menu. So this is your canvas. You can move it around, pinch and zoom, pretty standard stuff. If you want to get it back to normal, go to reset viewport. Some of the other stuff we have, you can do lock so that you don't have to worry about moving it around or your other hand moving it while you're drawing. You can turn on a square grid, which you can also adjust in preferences. You can turn on an isometric grid. Same thing, you can adjust the color and the size over in preferences. So let's do that real quick. Let's go to our isometric grid. Let's change the size. Change the color to purple. Done. So we've made it bigger and we've made it purple. Hit zoom, rotate the canvas, set your background color, and hide background. So all of these layers are transparent, but we've placed a background there so you can see what you're doing a lot easier. But if you want to save it as like a transparent PNG, before you save, just hit hide background. The background is now gone. But whatever you draw on there, it's still there, of course. And then the last button on the drop downs in the upper left is social. So that will take you to our Instagram page, to the official Made with Geometrica hashtag, and our YouTube, which will have this video and other tutorial videos coming up. All that can be accessed from here. So let's check out the drawing tools. And you have your dot work tool at the very top. So there's a lot of things you can adjust on this. This is pretty customizable, which is pretty rad. I was excited about this. Obviously the size of your entire brush, which is the size of the shape of dots that come out. You can adjust the density of the dots that come out. You can adjust the size of each individual dot. And same as all the other tools, you can adjust the opacity on it. So this one here is your airbrush tool, just what you would do your shading with. The variables on this one are a lot simpler. Just your standard shading tool. One here is marker. You can turn up the thickness, the opacity, pressure sensitivity, you can choose to have a rounded tip to your marker, or a square tip. You can also make the tip as you go very quickly out, just like when you were tattooing, like a whip shade type technique. Your marker can do this. I find to replicate the stuff we actually do in tattooing, it helps to turn it to a smaller thickness, like a 3.5. So give you that whip shade effect that you often see nowadays people doing with liners. That's something you can turn on and off. And your stroke smoothing. So a lot of people have asked for this feature, so we finally got it in there. Hopefully people dig it. People find it kind of hard to draw on the iPad. It's with, it's a weird glassy surface kind of thing. So stroke smoothing tends to help out a lot of people, because it definitely doesn't feel like drawing on paper on an iPad, but you get used to it. And then tools like the stroke smoothing, they definitely help. And the stroke smoothing and the dotted line, the whip shade, those don't work together. If you go too fast with the stroke smoothing, it kind of distorts it. So the dot whip shading only works when you go fast. So to have those two at the same time didn't make sense, so we switched it. You can either have one or the other. And we have our eraser tool. Also works with opacity and pressure sensitivity. Also, you have the option of the rounded tip or the square tip for the eraser. And our eraser also will work with our other symmetry tools turned on. So here it is with a mandala tool. And not every other app does this either, so it's kind of a cool feature. And there you go, there's the eraser. Another favorite of mine is the straight line tool. Place the Apple Pencil on the screen, move it around, and until you take it off the screen, you have the option to move that line wherever you want. Also very fun when you have the other symmetry tools turned on, like the mandala or the repeat effect. It's a fun way to make shapes that you weren't necessarily expecting or wouldn't have drawn otherwise. They just kind of happen sometimes when you've got the symmetries turned on. The fun thing with this one too is pressure sensitivity. As you push on it, it will get thicker. And that's your straight line tool. So next, let's check out the bucket fill tool at the bottom. It's the bucket with the little finger waves coming out of it. This will fill either the whole page, or if you have some design already going on, this will fill in whatever part you click on. And the really cool thing about ours that I don't think I've ever seen anywhere else is that it will work at the same time as our symmetry tools. So you got a mandala here that's 66 rotations. It's going to fill in all of those for you. Next to your straight line tool, you have this ink cap. That's where you choose what color you want to use. So you can either move the one around the outside of the dial to get which color and then fine tune it, the light and darkness of it in the center. And this thing underneath here saves your last 10 colors used. So something we've done for efficiency is to implement a long press feature in the icons in the toolbar. So depending on which icon you're on, the long press feature will do something different. So for the drawing tool one, it will take you back to the last drawing tool you were using. So we're on the straight line tool right now, and we want to switch back and forth quickly. The last one was marker. We're back to the straight line, back to the marker. The ink cap, the color button, this is going to take you to the last color you were using. Well, for all of our symmetry features in the main cluster of the toolbar, all of these can be enabled, which turned on and off, by using a long press rather than having to open up the drop-down menus. If you just want it on and off and you're not going to be making any adjustments to any of the options here, and you just want it quickly on and off, those can all be done by just long pressing on the icons. You'll know it whether it's on or off, because if it's on, it turns red. Ruler. mirror tool, repeat effect, rotation effect, wallpaper effect, and gradient thickness. And the long press feature for the last icon is the layers on the very far right. Long press will add a new layer for you. Here we've got 3. Little thing there pops up telling you new layer. And now you've got 4. So let's get into the real fun stuff of Geometrica. That's this cluster of buttons here. These are our symmetry tools. This is where a lot of stuff that has never happened before is happening in our app. So I'll give you a quick rundown of these and how they work. So the first one we'll do is the ruler. We have a straight line ruler, a circle ruler, or an ellipse ruler. You can use one of the 3 that's here, or you can continue to add more by pressing the plus button. You can add as many as you want. You can have tons of these all set at different angles or in different places. So our straight line ruler is really fun. You can, basically as you rotate it around the center, anything below the horizon line is just free form. It will move in any increment of degrees you want, and everything above the horizon line goes in, it's snapping to 15-degree variables, which is very handy. Like if you want, turn on the mandala tool to 6, you want to make hexagons, you might want to have it right there at 30 degrees. It's handy. And of course, yeah, the ruler tool works in conjunction with the other symmetries. So here's a circle tool. You can also move it off center, make it smaller or larger, move it wherever you like, and it will get repeated if you have the mandala tool turned on. Or any of the tools turned on, any of your symmetry tools. And then the ellipse ruler, same thing, you grab the center to move it around, stretch it, warp it with the other 2 buttons. And it also gets repeated when you have one of the other symmetry tools turned on. So the simplest of the symmetries is the mirror tool, the second icon from the left. Does what you'd expect. You can change it from horizontal to vertical. And a very cool thing about ours, there's another option called offset. Right now it's set to 0. So what you draw is going to appear exactly on the other side of the line, unless you start playing with offset, in which case it will appear in a different place. And where that feature really comes into play is when you have the mirror tool combined with the repeat effect. I'll show that in a second. So the third icon is the repeat effect. We enable it by toggling that on. You also have the option of horizontal or vertical. You have the option of mirror or non-mirrored. So let's check it out first, horizontal and mirrored. And let's change the segment size so you can kind of see what that does. You can either have, just a few or tons. So with mirror on, if we're going off of our center line, it's going to mirror both sides of that center line and then repeat it as many times as you've chosen. With the mirror off, everything goes in the same direction. So vertical. And vertical with mirror. And one of my favorite things to do with the repeat effect is to also turn on the mirror tool. So mirror plus repeat. These are the kind of things that we were definitely stoked about doing because no one has ever done before. These are the kind of features I've always wanted to have in an app, and it never existed, so we had to make our own. Let's try vertical without the mirror. So you have a lot of different options here, a lot of variables. You know, you've got the mirror tool, which is on, as you can see, indicated by the red. And then you have the mirror option within repeat effect. As you can tell, with one or the other, they do make quite a big difference of what happens on the screen. So let's go back to horizontal, keep the mirror off, but we'll turn on the mirror tool instead. And then we'll turn the mirror on. And then let's play around with the offset in the mirror effect. So it might sound a little confusing. There's a mirror tool, but there's also a mirror option within repeat effect. But really, you know, these are all just different variables, different combinations you can play with. It's not really that confusing, but it does kind of sound that way when you describe it. I figure the more options, the more variables, the better. You know, the more likely you are to do something that no one else has done yet. That's kind of the point of this style. See what kind of combinations people come up with. And we have our rotation effect, which is basically a mandala kind of tool. Enable that. So with the mirror turned off, everything goes in the same direction. With the mirror turned on, it gets repeated on either side of the line. Something very unique about ours is how high it goes up. It actually goes all the way up to 200, which is pretty much unheard of in any other app that I know of. The 200 rotations on the outside of the circle looks very cool. It has a lot of practical uses, definitely, if you use your imagination. The 200 rotations on the very center here doesn't have as many uses. It gets a little tight, and it's almost just black in the center. So we kind of used our guidelines to show you at what point you're not going to be getting much out of it. So the guidelines kind of start where it becomes useful and effective. Another fun thing to do is to turn on the rotation effect at the same time as the repeat effect. You can have like a row of mandalas appearing in front of you. So the second icon from the right is the wallpaper effect. This is a series of 17 different symmetry groups that's going to mirror and reflect what you draw in different ways depending on which one you choose. We'll start off with the simplest one. And these are adjustable. And we'll go and show you the most complicated one. So one of the fun things in our wallpaper effect is the ability to either lock the dimensions so they move at the same time, or you unlock it and you can move them separately. So this doesn't work for all of the symmetry groups. The math doesn't allow it for certain ones, but for the ones that it does allow, we have that option. So last but definitely not least, on the far right is our gradient thickness. This is definitely the most exciting tool that we've come up with. Normally on other programs, this would be a multi-step process to get this effect, whereas we've enabled it to happen right in front of your eyes. This is the one I was absolutely the most stoked about. So this increases the thickness of the stroke. So if you're drawing with, say, your marker at like an 8 pixel line, as it goes in whatever direction you choose, it's going to increase that. So we've got your top to bottom, left to right, going in and out from a circle, in and out from a square. There's a lot of different ones you can check out and play with. We'll start with the simplest, just a standard top to bottom to show you what we mean. As you draw on the wallpaper, the top of the page, the lines remain thin and gradually get thicker and thicker as you go down. So you can make that gradation more intense by turning up the thickness in your slider in gradient thickness, or you can also make it happen faster by starting with a thicker marker. So lots of variables to play with. That's the standard one, top to bottom. Let's do the circle, inside to outside. As you can see, the results are pretty cool. Or if you want to take it up another notch from there and increase the number of times it fades from thick to thin, we have two options. One is called wave, which does it gradually from thin to thick and then gradually from thick to thin again, sort of in a smooth kind of manner. Or we have the same type of effect that happens more abruptly, kind of like wind bars, Japanese wind bars. Here you can see exactly where the line is, where it thin to thick, stop, thin to thick, stop. So gradient thickness works phenomenally with the wallpaper groups, obviously, as I've just demonstrated, but it also works with all the other tools as well. So again, definitely encourage you to play around, turn on a lot of these effects together, see what they do, see what kind of results you get. A lot of different variables and a lot of fun to be had. So here, let's try it with the repeat effect on vertical with the mirror, and we're also going to turn on the mirror tool, and let's see what kind of effects that creates. Let's try it with one of the circular ones. Let's do outside to inside circle. We've got the repeat effect vertical plus mirror turned on. We've also got the mirror tool turned on. Let's see what that does. So having this much variation of tools, combinations of tools, and combined with everyone's personal drawing styles, I'm pretty excited about the fact that using the same app, everyone's going to get different results. So it's going to lead to more originality. Not everyone's tattoos are going to look the same. There's a lot of possibility for individuality. I'm excited to see what other people think of to do with these combinations of tools that I haven't thought of yet. So yeah, that's a basic rundown of the app. That's a lot of what it can do, and what else it can do is up to you and your imagination. So I hope you found this helpful. I think you got a pretty good grasp of what the tools do now. There's definitely a lot more features to be added as we go. This is just going to keep growing and growing. Everything that I have envisioned for Geometrica, like, we haven't seen anything yet. So I really appreciate all the community of Geometrica users that we have thus far. I hope you're enjoying it, finding it really useful and fun to play with. And I hope you stick with us for the future, because I got a lot more coming. Take care.